So, you dating anybody? See, every now and then I start to sound like Howard Stern. You know? Yeah. So what? And now that's irrelevant to the conversation. Suppose there is a battered woman. Suppose there is a woman who's in fear for her personal safety and for the safety of her children, maybe even in fear of her life. In the paper this morning, we had a man who was convicted of murder, and it sounded like a real horror story before the actual murder of his soon-to-be ex-wife happened. If we have any kind of situation like that, what does a woman do? I mean, who does she get a hold of?
Well, if she has an emergency situation, the first thing she should do is call the police. But we also have several other agencies in Fort Dodge that will help with that, including Crisis Intervention Service, which is CICS, and DSOC services, Domestic Sexual Assault Outreach Center. Those services both specialize in domestic violence. We specialize in addiction treatment. So we all work together to further the interest of women in our community, especially those who are most vulnerable in any types of situations, because we see addiction issues along with homelessness, domestic violence, and a number of other things.
That's interesting. I want you to describe to me the term vulnerable women, because I hear it all the time. Vulnerable women, a vulnerable population of women. Mm-hmm. How would you describe vulnerable women?
It could be any type of situation that puts a woman in a position that she does not have power over her own life, her own body, not in a position to protect her children, and any type of those situations. Could be poverty, it could be addiction, it could be a controlling partner or relationship. Those are things that make women vulnerable and unable to control their own lives and situations. So there's agencies out there like the YWCA, like DSOC, like Crisis Intervention, and a plethora of other agencies in town that can help in those situations.
Sure. So vulnerable women, it doesn't necessarily mean there's physical abuse involved. Right. It can be carrying on drunks, drug addicts in the home, which is its own personal horror. I can attest to that. But I'm glad to hear that. You know, I know the male in the relationship. If the police come and take the women and children out, his wife or partner or whatever, take the woman and the children out of the house and take them to your facility, homeboy there is not going to be too happy about it. You know,
sure.
The guys aren't, and by homeboy I don't mean black guy. I mean anybody in Fort Dodge, but they're not going to be too happy about that. Maybe the police leave, they think he's calmed down, but he ain't calmed down. He just saw his wife and children walk out. Mm-hmm. That's going to drive him nuts. So we get back to security over at your facility.
Right, and they wouldn't come to our facility. They would go to a place like this. We serve.
They go to a place like DSOC.
Right. We serve women who have addiction issues.
Strictly addiction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Are you connected with DSOC? I mean, do you work at DSOC? Or?
No, we're just community partners. So we're both trying to further the interest of women in Fort Dodge and surrounding community. By
furthering the interest of women, do you mean just their security?
No, I mean making it so, like our mission at the YWCA is to empower women and eliminate racism, and so it's providing for them until they can provide on their own. We want to empower them to be better people contributing to society.
You can do all that out of that YWCA building over there? Like, those are lofty goals, you know? Yep. Those are big time goals.
They are.
Well, let me know when you get that racism thing handled. Right? I'll declare a national holiday that racism is now over, and I'll bring you back in and we'll have a party.
I will come. I will come. That would be amazing.
No, that's going to take a long time. Who knows? 500 years, scientists say that we'll all be one race if we don't blow ourselves up. I don't know. Anyway, Wendy Krause Kelly is here along with Lydia Shure of the Growth Alliance. Does the Growth Alliance, maybe I should ask you first, is your organization a member of the Growth Alliance, Wendy?
We are.
Yes.
Okay, so that's how you got in touch with Lydia.
Yes.
Does the Growth Alliance or Randy Kuhlman's group over there, to your knowledge, have any programs of support for Wendy and her people at the Y or DSOC or any of that?
I don't know if Randy has anything that I don't know. Randy, do you guys have like an account there that people could donate to if they wanted to help the YWCA with their services?
You can donate through your United Way and specify the funds.
Randy's
go-
with the United Way, so.
Yes, and
Yes.
specify the funds go straight to the YWCA, or you can contribute directly to the YWCA. We are a nonprofit organization.
The Ys, YMCA, YWCA, used to be affiliated with the Methodist Church. Are the Ys still affiliated with the church?
No.
Okay, there is no, you have no legal or how shall I say it? You have no connection with the Methodist Church at all then?
Right, we're just a standalone organization.
All right, that's fine. Do you identify your organization as a Christian group? You have that in your name.
We are the YWCA, and we practice a lot of spirituality. There are Bible studies at our group, but our actual programming isn't faith-based, it's treatment-based.
Okay,
However, we encourage the practice of religion, and our ladies definitely focus on having a higher power in order to move forward in their NA or AA or any of the other recovery programs that they choose. We have a few Bible study groups, and we also, pre-COVID at least, allowed our women to go to church wherever they chose.
sure, yeah.
Mhm.
I asked that question because Steve Rowe, just down the
Mhm.
street here, just has a heck of a time. So, with funding, because he is a Christian, he and his wife are committed Christians, and they insist on Christian principles in their facility, which is their right, but that excludes them from any state or federal aid at all. So you must have some sort of designation, even though Christian is in your name. You must have don't really have a straightforward affiliation with any Christian group.
Right.
Okay. All right. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. If you want to go to the Alpha Media website or the AM 1400 website or the AM 1400 KVFD Facebook page, we have audio and video there. We're not showing Lydia today, but we got the camera on Wendy over there. So, do you want to be on the camera? I can change her.
I'm totally fine.
You're totally fine.
I'm good.
Okay, you're totally fine.
And actually, Mandy and I have been working on an event that is happening next week at the Vincent House on Wednesday, the 18th, to commemorate the work of Adeline Swain and her work to help get votes for women.
Mm-hmm.
She's having a plaque placed at the Vincent House. She was the original owner of the Vincent House.
Yes, she was.
Yes. So do you want to talk about that at all?
Absolutely. So Adeline Swain was the wife of, she and her husband, James, they built the Vincent House originally, and Adeline was a teacher. She was, she started the women's suffrage movement in Fort Dodge.
Oh, she was advocating for the right for women to vote.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. And she was friends with Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony spent the night at the Vincent House.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So the Dragoon Questers of Fort Dodge and Sherry Fitzgerald, that she did a lot of research and applied for Adeline to be placed on what they call the National Votes for Women Trail. So now Adeline, one of our foremothers of Fort Dodge, is now nationally recognized for the work that she did to get women the right to vote.
Sherry must know where to go with this grant money application stuff. I'll tell you. What did you say the grant came from?
It is from the, they just sent us the plaque, the
Okay.
William G. Pomeroy Foundation, and they control the National Votes for Women Trail. So it's a federal.
It's a federal thing.
It's a national.
So the offices are in Washington, D.C., I would assume.
I'm not sure where William Pomeroy comes from here, but that would be.
Probably not from Pomeroy, Iowa, though, right?
No,
Okay.
no, it is in New York State and beyond is what. they're-
Okay, that's fine.
here,
Yeah,
so.
that's great.
So it's a national thing. It's really neat to think that one of our foremothers of Fort Dodge was that instrumental in the women's suffrage movement. And it's the 101st anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, granting the right for women to vote.
sports.com on Twitter.
That's right. We're alive and well here at Fort Dodge. The number here is 955-1400 if you'd like to join the conversation. I don't like to lecture people. I just as soon get your side of things or get your input about current events in our town and our county, our state. I might learn something. That was one of the great discoveries of my younger days. If I actually listened to what people were saying, I would learn something. Now I'm pushing 70. I'll be 70 my next birthday, and I don't think I've completely learned that lesson. But it's a good lesson to learn. And still to this day, when I listen to what people are saying, I learn something. I learn sometimes that they're wrong or that they don't know what they're talking about. And other times I learn that I'm wrong and perhaps I don't really know what I've been talking about. But 955-1400. I want to talk a little bit about the Hurdle trial here in town. Mr. Hurdle, Justin Hurdle, killed his wife, and he was convicted of it. He's going to prison for life, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. There's been a couple of blots on our community in the last few years. This is one of them. The other, of course, is the brutal murder of Reverend Al Henderson. And there's been others, but these two stand out for the helplessness of the victim and for the malice and brutality in which they were killed. I'm focused on what Mr. Hurdle's attorney, a woman by the name of Catherine Flickinger, she's with the Story County Public Defender's Office. That's where the trial was held on a change of venue, of course. I'm interested in what Ms. Flickinger had to say about the comments of the relatives of Miss Flint, who was the victim of this shooting. Justin Hurdle killed Maggie Flint, who was his wife at the time, but I believe they were about to be divorced. Some of the relatives, and they have every right to be upset, deeply saddened, shocked, and very emotional. I have no problem with that. And I don't think they said, when they gave their victim impact statements, I don't think they said anything out of line. They were emotional, they were hurt, they were very angry at Mr. Hurdle for taking their mother. But Ms. Flickinger, again, of the Story County Public Defender's Office, objected, and I'm quoting now from the Fort Dodge Messenger, objected to much of the content of the 3 victim impact statements, calling the content just insults and commentary not allowed in victim impact statements under Iowa Code. District Court Judge Christopher Polking overturned the objection. Judge Polking said, again quoting from the Messenger, in receiving victim impact statements, the court does not expect them to be written or given as if they were from a novelist or a philosopher or a lawyer or a professional speechmaker. Polking said, it would be expected that the victim impact statements may be emotional, they may be raw. I accept that. I do. And I would not deny the right of Maggie Flint's relatives to say and address Mr. Hurdle in a very raw way. The reason I'm talking about this is several years ago, a young man, 19 or 20 years old, murdered an older man. No excuse for that. I mean, what a terrible crime. It's perhaps the worst thing you can do to another human being other than rape, which destroys the soul but leaves the victim alive, if you can call a victim alive after that. Sometimes some of the brutal rapes I've heard about. The point is, this young man was convicted. Again, young man, 19, 20 years old. I don't remember the specific case. I'll try to have to find it on Google or something. But the young man was convicted, and some of the older man's relatives came forward with victim impact statements, and they were brutal. They openly mocked him going to prison, sneered, practically spit, and wished that he would be gang raped in prison. That some large man, and I think they met a large black man, would take him for a girlfriend in prison for the rest of his young life. These are the sorts of things we're seeing. The victims, those giving the victim impact statements, didn't seem brokenhearted. They seemed full of vindictiveness, which is different than I think what was intended by those people who wanted to pass a rule allowing victim impact statements. A lot of, if you remember, before there were victim impact statements, sentence was given, you're guilty of murder, you go into prison, and out the door the guy went. Out of the courtroom the guy went, or the woman or whoever was the perpetrator of a crime. Well, some of the victims began to say, look, our hearts were broken by this person. We should have some sort of right to address them in court. I'm to this day, I'm in fully agreement. But I think a judge has to be very careful. And we have to be very careful about where we go with our rage and with our desire for justice. Because what happened in this young man's case several years ago, not in the not in the Hurdle case, just a Hurdle case. But what happened with this young man was not justice. It was cruelty. Apparently, he sat in the courtroom with a very deeply red face as the relatives of his victim repeatedly hoped with a mocking tone and posture that he would be gang raped and brutalized for the rest of his life. I'm at 955-1400, and I would welcome any calls on this subject or any other subject. I wasn't there, obviously, in Ames yesterday, and from what I've read of the relatives of Maggie Flint, who was murdered, taken away in the prime of life, she was only 38 years old. None of her relatives did anything like I just described. Certainly, if they did, it wasn't in the newspaper this morning. And I would be surprised if they did that. They have every single right to be emotional. And any survivor giving a victim impact statement has the right to be as raw as possible. But I think, judged on that earlier case, that we should, the judge should be wary, should be careful. This is AM 1400, KBFP, the voice of Fort Dodge. It's 326.
Is online at yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at Jake.
Yeah, the news is coming up.
Get ready for the Magic Lake Dragon Boat Bash this Friday